Hey buddy, it's Carm here. Back on a Tuesday. Just wanted to come on and share some, I see a lot of people are doing kind of year in review videos, sharing their favorite albums of the year, or top new finds or new releases, just all kinds of things. It's really enjoyable seeing these, and I thought I'd do my very particular take on this, I suppose. First though, I just wanted to share this and thank a dear friend. I just received this in the mail yesterday from Tink, Sideshow Tink, who I hope many of you are aware of. Wonderful person, one of my very favorite people, and really one of the first people I think I ever discovered on YouTube doing these kinds of videos, sharing her passions in general, whether it was music, other forms of art. She does a lot of thrift finds, and just someone I felt a real kinship with right away. Highly individual, and really a sense of I think what pretty much we all appreciate in each other's videos is a sense of personal connection and kinship with one another, and a real sense of immediacy, like we're just sitting in the room with each other, sharing all this. And I've always felt that with her since the very beginning. And yeah, she just very kindly surprised me with this. So thank you so much, Tink. This is one of her original art prints, collage piece. And I guess quite rare. She's only made a few of these in particular. So I'm honored to have one of them. And yeah, for creativity, yeah, just somebody I really recommend, just for all areas of interest. I think you'd really enjoy her channel. So yeah, I recommend visiting her. And yeah, thank you so much for this. Definitely find a good spot for it. I had it for sitting up here. I can't really see it, but got some records there. But yeah, I'll find a perfect spot for it. So yeah, thank you so much for that, Tink. And yeah, I just want to share some things I've found this year. I'd say this year in particular, I've probably bought less music than any other year in the past, for a variety of reasons, of course, being a much different year than we've had at any point really. But doing a lot of revisiting, of course, and going through those, I found what relatively little new music as far as newly released and recorded music I picked up this year. It was primarily from the same record label, and it's this one here. Project, based in Oregon, in Portland. Started in the early 80s by a fellow named Sam Rosenthal, a composer, musician, performer, all-around artist, writer. I think he's in a group called, I think it's Black Tape for a Blue Girl, which also releases albums on this label. And I first became aware of this label through this artist here, Steve Roach. Besides electronic and ambient type things, I meant to write these down, but there's dark cabaret, shoegaze, post-punk, dream pop, just a variety of things, modern classical, all done for the most part in kind of a darker, airy, pensive, kind of further reaches of the atmospheric type of approach overall, which I think reflects Sam's own aesthetic from what I've heard, and of course somebody like Steve Roach fits right in there. And I'd been on their mailing list for a while, and a bunch of stuff kept coming up through their Bandcamp site. So it was kind of like the carrot that was dangling, and had to go for a lot of those, which I couldn't help it. Some of this stuff is from old favorite artists as well as newer ones I was getting introduced to, and they do have some really nice sales. In fact, I think there might be one going on now still, like half off. You get $7 for a CD, so hard to pass those up. Well, I'll start in with the one album I picked up out of these that wasn't released this year. This is from 2015. Well, it came out in 2015, but it's a 1983 archival recording from Steve Roach, Emotions Revealed. There's two long cuts here, representing two aspects of what he was doing at the time. He was quite early in his with recording then. He had put out Now and Traveler around this time, his first two official albums, and this had been in the vault for many years. Emotion Revealed, the title cut, you could hear more of a sequencer based, a little bit more up tempo, but also it's kind of barely shifting approach, where you have a kind of a basic theme stated, which pretty much stays in the same spot with just little subtle gradations of change throughout. And you could hear right away, where he was coming from. And the second piece, Firelight, to me is extraordinary. As far as his quieter, contemplative, if you want to call them ambient pieces, this has become one of my favorites, and something that hadn't even been released. Starting off, a lot of shimmering drones. Something about his timbral approach I've never heard anything like since then that he's taking on here. I think he was using primarily analog synthesizers at the time, and just finding ways to make them sound a little bit beyond their capabilities somehow. A certain brightness to them, but still remaining warm and otherworldly. And even later on, he had more of an organic style and approach. But you could hear that early on in this release. It's very much like this cover here. Very much recommended if you're a fan of his. You kind of hear his beginnings. And I'm always excited for hearing things out of an artist's vault, and just kind of where they were coming from at that time. So, Emotions Revealed. Kind of going in the order of the release, just for whatever reason here. Mark Selig, The Disciple's Path. And the rest of these came out in 2020 or recorded within the last year or so, year and a half. He's a bansuri player, the Indian bamboo flute, and joined on here by Lauren Norell and Max Link. Plays a variety of instruments himself: dilruba, Indian cello, electronic violin, a guitar, and harmonic chants. There's also a little bit of light electronics. It's kind of a transparent thread, kind of tying everything together. Overall, very much in the style of a kind of Indian raga. You could hear the distinctions with the electronics, and also his overall approach. His playing, he's true to the traditions, it seems, from what I've heard of that music, but also very much individual flavor. You have four quite long tracks, one in particular. Title cut's very long, but they all have that kind of long, drawn out, very contemplative, him improvising on flute over a series of drones and shimmers and some light percussion, which again has kind of a slow, easy tempo, but maintains a very consistent mood throughout. Very powerful stuff, and played at any time. Most of this, I'd say, is nocturnal music, and I'd say this also. But sounds good anytime. And, if you like the kind of minimal raga-based music, especially anything the Far East, and this kind of flute playing, definitely recommend. Beautiful stuff. Mark Selig, The Disciple's Path. Was really excited when I heard about this coming out. I heard a little bit before it was actually released. One of those highly, for me personally at least, highly anticipated. Eric Volo and Michael Stearns, Convergence. Michael Stearns, the fellow pictured here, someone I've been a fan of for a long time, since middle of high school. Synthesist, wonderful synthesist, also guitarist on here, which I believe is his first instrument. And Eric Volo from Norway, also on guitars and synthesizers. A variety of instruments, kantala, some percussion. Of course, Michael on the beam, if you know that instrument, is well known for that. And just what you would expect from the two of them. Wonderful. You could hear the influences of both artists, both kind of the earlier European electronic scene, as well as being quite modern. Really a nice blend of older and newer styles, and really nice how the guitar is blended in. sometimes not sounding like a guitar, sometimes very much obvious, along with the synthesizers. Another one of those things that's at times sequencer based, although taking it further on from, you could say, is like the German style of the 70s, make it very much modern. Just very expansive, shorter pieces, but also very expansive within each one. Yeah, if you're a fan of either artist, very much recommend. I probably hear a little bit more of Eric coming through overall, if you know his distinctive sound. But great hearing something from Michael as well after I think quite a few years. He hadn't been putting out as much new music. But I was very happy to find this for this coming out. So yeah, Convergence from Eric Folo and Michael Stearns. And back to another new Steve Roach, Soulless Ends. And again, he's one of those artists that in the last 20 years especially, there's no way to keep up with his recordings, I find. I think he averages maybe half a dozen a year, as well as he's been doing live streaming concerts on YouTube, which has been wonderful. And this harkens back to some earlier work of the mid to late 80s when he was doing his quiet music series, as well as Structure Some Silence. It's a nice median point between that and his Immersion series, which is more recent. The Immersion series is quite dark. A lot of it's like one long dronescape, 74 minutes of just a dark drone, barely shifting, again, little gradations of change. This is a nice midpoint between those, not too dark, and it's not quite as bright as the quiet music series. Yeah, pretty much the all synthesizer, just slowly shifting chords, little harmonic progressions, even slight sequencer at times, but again slower and more less obviously influenced by the past. And again, very long cuts here. Yeah, 32 minutes, 16 minutes, 25 minutes. But he's one of the masters of long-form electronic music of this kind. Quieter, spacious, more contemplative. Really good for playing overnight, which I have quite a bit. And yeah, perfect for this year. I mean, just for kind of a healing, just for healing and going further inward. So out of his newer music of the last few years, this has become one of my favorites as far as new stuff, which is very, very difficult to keep up with. He recorded at his own studio, the Time House, in April. Yeah, graphic design by Sam Rosenthal. Yeah, variety of disciplines. So yeah, A Soul Ascends by Steve Roach. Forest Fang, The Book of Wanderers. This is actually, if you're familiar with Forest Fang, believe it or not, this is the very first album I've ever picked up by him. I've known of him for years and I've heard his music, and I've heard his collaborations with other artists, similarly minded artists, but I just never got into his solo stuff for some reason. But not disappointed at all. An excellent blend of, he's really a multi-instrumentalist. Besides synthesizers, sounds like a variety of stringed instruments. Sounds like dulcimer or zither of some kind, interspersed throughout. Again, you're going between these kind of very rhythmic synthesizer patterns, more droning pieces. Robert Rich guests on here on flute on one of the cuts, and his influence, I think sounds like he influenced Forrest overall in a lot of ways. That kind of squishy, squelchy version of electronic where you kind of like walking barefoot in the forest and feeling the soft earth below your feet, and it's very dark, but it's also kind of bright, and you're curious about what's coming up ahead. It has that mix of the organic and electronic without ever sounding mechanical. He really finds a really nice balance there. Some of the pieces get, I wouldn't say upbeat necessarily, but very active somehow, very dense with the instrumentation, and lots of layers throughout, both timbrally and as far as the actual playing overall. Really nice introduction to an artist who's been around for a long time. Yeah, it's probably one of my favorites of this whole bunch. It's Forest Fang, The Book of Wanderers. Yeah, recorded in April of 2019 and June of 2020. So, yeah, very much recommended. I believe all of this music too, you could listen to at least part of it on Bandcamp. If you go to, and I'll leave a link to the site. You could check all this out for yourself, at least hear parts of it. But, yeah, it's a nice introduction after all these years of knowing of him. This is another excellent one, and as far as hearing these artists for the first time, this was a totally new one to me. Sunwashed Evening Fire, Sam Rosenthal in Jarguna. This is, to me, an incredible album. Very subtle, very beautiful, a lot like the cover. It has kind of a shifting sunlight on the wall kind of feel to it, throughout the day. I love these titles. Evening Market of the Petal Fields, done in 4 parts, and Lhasa River Circles the Fading Sunset. And it really does evoke that. Among the electronics and some, you could hear some stringed instruments being played in there, kind of similar to the Forest Fang. Eric Volo also guests on guitar on one of the cuts. There's also some spoken voices, snippets of conversation, a little bit of found sounds, kind of bump in the night type things, but also, again, a certain brightness. And I think out of all of these, this is probably one of the least dark albums, or at least has more of a kind of daytime feel, but also that sense of ambiguity. Even though you can see everything in front of you, you can't see everything in front of you, kind of thing. There's still some things hidden in the depths, and I really like that about how they're able to convey that. Yeah, just a gorgeous album. Again, another, if you like electronic and ambient, but also a mixture of the electroacoustic and something that's surreal, but also manages to be earthy and familiar in some ways. Definitely recommend this. And a beautiful introduction to Sam's own playing and Jarguna, who I wasn't previously familiar with. So yeah, Sunwashed Evening Fire, gorgeous. Another fine project from Project. And one more here. Tim, where are you now? This is a collaboration for Timothy Leary's 100th birthday by Sam Rosenthal and Project artists. Various artists are contributing to this to commemorate his birthday. And as you would expect with a compilation, you have a great variety of different styles and approaches from the various groups on here. There's also some spoken word interludes here and there. Also introducing the album. Not psychedelic like you may expect, stereotypically from something dedicated to someone like Tim Leary. Of course, there was so much more to him than merely that. But there's some rock, kind of, I would say almost kind of alternative rock sounding stuff, as well as, the more traditional electronic, ambient sequencer-based European influence stuff. But just a lot of different styles. Steve Roach is on here, as well as Eric Volo. There's lots of vocals, not just with lyrics, but also with, as an instrument, kind of blending into the mix overall. Henrik on cello. There is a beautiful blend of electronic and acoustic, probably more so than on the previous albums. Again, just a lot of variety. You get a sense of the other artists on the label and what they do, and it's just a really nice tribute to the man and just just expanding one's mind in general and one's own curiosity. You hear that sense of a wonder in the music a lot of times, which is really always refreshing to hear. So yeah, and it's a nice introduction to the label in general. If you're not familiar, get a little sense of everything. So you have Tim, where are you now? Sam Rosenthal and the Project artists. And these are the ones wanted to show this time around. Again, for someone who doesn't normally get into a whole lot of newly recorded music, and I'm always trying to stay open to new things, and but it was an interesting way to come about it, just in a different sense, just going basically through what was on the mailing list and what would pop up, and just satisfying the curiosity. And again, it was a label I've been into for a long time. I just hadn't known much about besides Steve Roach, so it took a while, but finally exploring other aspects of it, and would definitely recommend checking it out if you're interested in these different approaches to music, and just that the particular flavor and way that they go about it. And in the background here, an album that's not on Project, but probably should be, because based on its style and approach, Jeff Pierce from the Darker Seasons. Really nice. You could hear it's primarily guitar, electric guitar, and electronic processing. Unlike many people, however, my favorite seasons have always been fall and winter. So I'm sure, like myself and he and myself, many of you could relate. At least some of you feel that way about this time of year. Yeah, I agree very much. And it paints the picture wonderfully of now, how it feels now, this time of year. Yeah, Jeff Pierce from the Darker Seasons, self-released. Yeah, Jeff Pierce website there. When you hear more of this, definitely recommend. Well, that'll do it for about now. Just wanted to come on and share these and see what comes next. Might show a few more things, things I've discovered for myself through the year, and things that some of you have influenced me and inspired me to look further into. Definitely want to show some of those, and a lot of artist profiles I'm hoping to get around to finally after years of planning, and hopefully to get there finally this winter. Hope you're all doing well as possible. If I don't see you before then, Happy New Year. As long as we do our part as much as possible, I think it can be Happy New Year as much as we can do. Given everything. The director says hello and goodbye. Want to say hi? Since he's here, he doesn't hate me for this. Here he is. But so from Rocky and Fuzzy, wherever he is, again, Happy New Year, and peace, love, and joy.